So you may not know this about me based on the other games I've reviewed here on my channel, but I actually love RPGs. They are my favorite genre of game. Something about embarking on an epic journey to save the world, especially through turn-based combat, it just speaks to me. Battling, leveling up, learning new skills, exploring a world with a wide array of characters. RPGs have it all. Now, while the West has dabbled in the genre, most of the RPGs I've played are of the Japanese variety. I have done very little branching out, as it were, from the more mainline series, Pokemon, Persona, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest. So I know that there are some more, shall we say, extra Japanese games out there. And while Tokyo Mirage Sessions is a collaboration between Persona and Fire Emblem, which are two massive RPG series in Japan that have recently surged in popularity in the West, this one also goes a little more into introducing us to Japan, as it were. While this title does merge the weapons triangle of Fire Emblem with the turn-based combat of Persona, it does also kind of dip its toes, I guess, into Japanese culture, specifically idol culture. The game's story centers around a group of teenagers looking to be the next big idols in Japan, while also fighting demons as a kind of side gig. Now, in my 13 Sentinels review, I talked about weeb stuff, and oof, this game is full weeb. It's loud and proud. But does that mean it's not worth playing? Does the gameplay outweigh the embarrassment you feel should someone walk in on you? Let's talk about it. But before we do, as always, quick reminder, if you like the video, like the video. There's a button down there. Alright, let's get on with it. So while this game is a collaboration between the two franchises, from a gameplay perspective, it really feels like a Shin Megami Tensei game rather than Fire Emblem. There are some narrative tie-ins to the Fire Emblem universe, and they do take the weapon triangle, so certain weapon types are weak to others and more effective against others in that traditional Fire Emblem way. The rest of the game, it's turn-based, it's got all of the elements that the Shin Megami Tensei games have. Persona, if you're familiar with that, which is a spin-off. So it really does feel like one of those games at heart, rather than a Fire Emblem game. Each of the main characters in their game has their own unique mirage, which feeds on their creative energy or performa to gain new skills and abilities. Each mirage has its own unique class, but you can change those, and these kind of take from the Fire Emblem classes. You can unlock more advanced ones at later levels. However, unlike the Persona series or the Shin Megami Tensei series, you are each limited, including the main character, you're limited to a single mirage. You don't go find new ones out in the wild. Now, to give you that kind of Persona feel, each of the main characters in the game has a number of side quests that you can undertake. Similar to the social links in Persona, you get to know the individual character a little better through some cutscenes, and usually they will have you return to previous dungeons to kill a mini-boss or collect a certain number of items, things like that. They mostly revolve around the individual's character's desire to be a better idol, or to be a hero, or to be a movie star, and so, they ring pretty hollow, but it's nice to at least have it. It does bring in that Persona side of things. You get to know your party characters a little better. But really, this kind of highlights the biggest problem I had with the game. I do not give a crap about surface level show business. I just don't. There is an overarching plot about an evil mirage trying to summon a world-ending disaster. But, oh boy, it's so hard to care because every other story beat is like, oh no, we have to learn all these hard dance moves, or, oh my god, I have to perform with my favorite idol? How can I possibly do that? I can't share the stage with my favorite literal celebrity crush. Ooh, woo. It's so cringy. It's pretty hard to get past, honestly. Luckily, the gameplay is pretty top-tier JRPG, turn-based, in theory, that is. Each Mirage has a number of weapons that you create using items you collect from combat. As you use the weapon, it levels up, which unlocks new skills that your characters can use. You can even craft prestige versions of the weapon later on in the game, which unlock all the skills again, and if you already have one of the skills equipped, you can sort of stack it so it gets stronger and stronger, which is a nice little system. You really get to control and strengthen specific builds for each individual character. I felt pretty free to kind of mix and match different weapons and different skills. I never felt like I had to tunnel in on a specific thing. Now, like most RPGs, there is a lot of combat to be had here. And while the core loop of exploiting weaknesses for bonus damage, instead of getting additional attacks in this game, you chain attacks in a kind of performance sort of way. It's pretty cool, and I really liked the system. However, the difficulty curve is very bad. It's pretty flat as you're exploring the dungeon. You usually level up as you're going, and then you get to a boss battle that is just a crazy level check. So you're over-leveled for the trash mobs in the dungeon, but you're under-leveled for the boss battle. So this kind of turns the game into a grindy mess. I played the Switch version, which does include what I later found out was a DLC dungeon that you can go in, and when you go in there, you collect these XP items that essentially just give you free levels to your characters. This saves the grind, but then it almost makes the game feel worse because, one, to collect these items, you're just going into this same little... It's just a little room. It's not a big, so you're just running through this same room over and over and over, just killing the same little weak enemies over and over and over, just to get your guys leveled up. And then, because this game takes your level into account when you get experience, so then you accidentally over-level too much, you get to the next dungeon, and none of the trash mobs are giving you any experience. And so then this problem just keeps picking up and kicking back up down the line, because then you get to the next boss and now you're under-leveled again because you didn't get any experience, and it's the difficulty curve is poorly designed, so the trash mobs are lower level than the boss mob. So you gotta go back to the XP dungeon, grind up XP, get your guys leveled, over-level them, fight the boss, and then trash your way through the next dungeon, not getting any experience, and it just keeps going. I felt like I never, after like the second dungeon, never was leveling up in the dungeons, and I'd always have to just get to the boss, farm the XP things. I'd try really hard to be like as low a level as possible to beat the boss, so that when I got to the next dungeon, I could actually just play the game normally, and I never felt like I got back to that good equilibrium. That makes every combat feel unnecessary, but doesn't stop it from happening every 10 seconds. So, it really made a lot of the game feel pointless. The last dungeon especially, by the time you get to the end of the game, just felt like such a horrible slog. I mean, it was nice. I'm glad I had the XP farm, because I would have hated grinding every dungeon, and I think that's how the base game was designed, and I think that's why they released this DLC dungeon. But I would have rather, this is a Switch re-release, right? Can't you just rebalance the game? How hard would that have been to rebalance the game a little bit? Up some of the levels or some of the XP you get from the trash mobs, maybe lower some of the levels of the bosses just to make it not so super grindy. I'm not a game designer, it just felt like there's a better solution here than the one I was presented. On the plus side, I did really enjoy the bosses specifically. They usually were pretty unique, engaging, and challenging. They were challenging. You have to kind of think about what you're doing. You can't just mow them down. And they did require those thought and tactics, so I did like that. Visually, the game looked pretty okay. It was originally a Wii U game, and you can kind of see that, especially in the dungeons, a lot of the sort of samey corridors. But it still looked nice. The dungeons do have varying style and locales, so It never feels like it gets too samey. I do like the main battle arena. It's this big stage with these huge like LED screens that highlight the characters that are out on the field and things like that. That was the one part of the game where the showbiz tie-in really felt like a positive, like it was adding to the game in a meaningful way. The menus were nice, they're simple, easy to navigate, combat felt pretty fluid. The game is centered around idols, so you can unlock some Christian channels, so we'll just say eye-catching outfits for the characters, so that's nice, I guess, if you're into that. I've personally always loved the soundtracks in Persona games, Shin Megami Tensei games, and this one doesn't disappoint. It's got some really good tunes. I am not really a fan of pop music in general, but it definitely works in the context of the game. I wouldn't say it's as full of bangers as like Persona 5 was, but it was definitely pretty good. You definitely will get a lot of the songs stuck in your head, even some of the basic, just kind of walking around the menus music. So in the end, Tokyo Mirage Sessions is a solid JRPG. It's got a difficulty curve that's a little rough. It could have been ironed out for this Switch release. I don't think that makes it not worth playing. I did have trouble caring about the story. The individual characters themselves had this kind of harmless charm about them that never made me get totally sick of it. Like they were still, you still feel connected to the characters and whatever. So I never really walked away from the game. I played through it. I thought combat was fun. It did end up being a bit repetitive, and it felt a little pointless because of how the XP ended up working out, but the core combat mechanics are really good. They're really good. I really enjoyed the core mechanics. I think this is really a perfect Switch game because you can easily play it on the couch in handheld mode, grind through a dungeon, grind through some trash mobs while you're watching Netflix, whatever, Great British Baking Show, whatever you watch on Netflix. That's mostly what I did. The game took me about 45 hours to play through, but it felt like a breeze for the most part, because I was mostly multitasking while I played it. Really, the game's harmless. If you can get past the story content, I think you should be able to. Just own it. Just be like, yeah, I'm playing a game about waifus. Mom, you should have raised me better. I don't know. What do you want from me? Overall, I would give the story a 1 out of 5, the gameplay a 4 out of 5, and the presentation a 4 out of 5, for a final rating of 3.5 out of 5. For value, it's a solid JRPG game. It's a little late to be picking it up now. You got Shin Megami Tensei 5 is out. That's a much better game. It's got an actual narrative that you care about. But if you've already played through those, this is a great one to pick up. I got it for $40 on sale. I think that was worth it. I think it's arguably worth it at full price, especially if you're into the idol stuff, then buy it. Just buy it. It's a really great RPG. If you're looking for a good RPG, this one is definitely up there as far as what you can find on the Switch today. So what do you think? Do you love idols? Do you love waifus? Do you love dressing them up in costumes? Keep that to yourself, but please leave a comment about something else. What other games would you like me to review? What other games would you like me to play through? It's possible I may do that. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you with the next video.